Welcome to this quick demo of Unaric Voice for Microsoft Teams. In this walkthrough, we'll show you what a normal day looks like for people who live in Salesforce, handling inbound service calls and outbound sales calls, while using the Teams phone system you already have. Unaric is the only native Microsoft Teams integration for Salesforce. That means you keep your existing global team setup, and every call, outcome, and follow-up is captured directly in Salesforce without adding another telephony platform. Everything starts here, inside Salesforce. The Unaric panel is built directly into the workspace. I can see my team's presence, my recent calls, and a simple dialer all in one place. I don't have to open a separate CTI bar or browser plugin. I stay in Salesforce the whole time, which makes life easier for users and keeps onboarding simple for new team members. Let's see what that looks like on a live call. Here, I'm getting an inbound call from John Smith. As the call comes in through Microsoft Teams, Unaric looks up the phone number in Salesforce and opens the right record automatically. In this case, it pops up John's open opportunity so I can see the deal value, stage, and recent activity before I even say hello. For customer service teams, the system could just as easily open an active case instead. Either way, your team isn't starting calls blind. Instead, they're given full context, which helps reduce handle time and improves the chances of first contact resolution. In the Unaric panel, I still have all the call controls everyone recognizes from Teams: mute, hold, keypad, consult, and transfer. The difference is that they're available right here inside Salesforce. I can manage the conversation and update the CRM at the same time, instead of juggling different windows. For agents, that means fewer clicks and less distraction, so they can stay focused on the customer in front of them. Now imagine John starts the call asking about a potential deal, but then pivots to an open support issue. All I do is open John's case in Salesforce. Unaric notices that I'm now working on the case record and shows it in the Assign section alongside John's contact. With one click on Assign, the call is linked to that case, so the full conversation history follows the work. Anyone who picks up this case later can instantly see when we spoke to John and what the call was about. While John is still on the line, I add a quick note. Send case info doc, and mark this as a service call where we've promised to send information. I tick the follow-up option so a task will be created automatically when we're done. This takes only a couple of seconds during the call, but it means every conversation is tagged with a clear outcome and a next step, instead of relying on free text that no one can report on later. For managers, that's the difference between "we'll get back to you" and a concrete, trackable commitment in Salesforce. When the conversation is finished, I hang up and hit Save in the Unaric panel to confirm my notes and the outcome. From that save, Unaric does the heavy lifting in Salesforce, creating the follow-up and linking everything to the right records, so agents don't have to build it all manually. A follow-up task is created automatically. It's already assigned to the right person, linked to the correct case and to John's contact. I simply pick a subject, here, send letter, and save. For managers, that turns what was said on the call into a real, owned activity in Salesforce. Promises don't depend on memory or sticky notes. They become actionable data you can actually see and manage. Here you can see the full task, who owns it, what needs to happen, and which case and contact it relates to. Just below, the call details are attached to the same record: when the call happened, how long it lasted, and how it was classified. For agents, there's almost no extra admin. For team leads and managers, it becomes much easier to see which calls created follow-ups, which ones are still open, and where customers are still waiting for action. Exactly the kind of visibility you need to stay on top of SLAs and "you said you'd call me back" moments. And from the task, it's just one click to jump back to John's contact record. In John's activity timeline, we can now see the inbound call we just handled, logged automatically with the outcome and our note about sending case information. Right next to it sits the follow-up task, along with any previous calls, emails, or meetings. So whenever someone opens John's record, today or in 6 months, they can see exactly what was agreed, what's been done, and what's still outstanding, without digging through different systems or asking around the team. That's how you keep service consistent, even when a different person picks up the next touch. Now let's look at an outbound sales call. I'm still on John Smith's contact record and I just click his phone number. Salesforce starts a Teams call for me in the background, and I stay right here on this page. I'm not juggling tabs or retyping numbers into a keypad. I just click and talk. While John is ringing, I jump into his open opportunity. Now I can see the deal value, stage, close date, and previous activity while we speak, which makes it much easier to ask the right questions and agree clear next steps on the deal. In the Unaric panel, I make sure this call is linked to both John's contact and this opportunity. That way, anyone who later looks at the contact or the deal will see that this conversation happened and what it was about. Before we finish, I add a quick note. Send new quote, and select send quote as the outcome. Because we use a standard list of outcomes, it's easy later on to see how many calls turned into quotes, decisions, or follow-ups, instead of trying to interpret lots of different free text comments. When the call is done, I hang up and hit save. Everything about that conversation, who I spoke to, what we agreed, and which opportunity it relates to, is now logged in Salesforce. On the opportunity, you can see that call logged automatically with the send quote result and my note attached. So when someone reviews this deal later, they can instantly see when we last spoke to John and that the next step is to send a quote, without chasing anyone for an update. Opening the call record gives you the full picture: who called whom, which numbers were used, when the call started and ended, how long it lasted, and that this was a call where we agreed to send a quote. None of that is typed in manually. It all comes straight from the call itself and from the choices we made in the Unaric panel. For teams that record calls for quality, training, or compliance, each call can also be captured and stored in your Microsoft 365 environment. From this same call record in Salesforce, you can jump straight to the recording with a single click. Here you can replay the call, read the transcript, and use Microsoft's AI in Teams to highlight the key topics and moments in the conversation. Because the recording and transcript live in Stream and SharePoint, everything stays inside your Microsoft tenant. That keeps compliance and security teams comfortable while still giving you great material for coaching and quality checks. All of this activity also feeds into live views for team leads. In this dashboard, you can see who is available, who is in a call, which queues they're logged into, and even their local time. It becomes much easier to understand coverage at a glance and step in quickly if queues are building or service levels are at risk. Because Unaric stores every call natively in Salesforce, you can use standard dashboards to understand what's happening on the phones. Here you can see overall call results, daily call volumes, and how calls are distributed across regions or segments. That helps with staffing decisions and with spotting patterns in demand. This view breaks activity down by outcome and by user. You can see how many calls are inbound or outbound, and which outcomes are most common, like quotes sent, issues resolved, or missed calls, and how that splits across each member of the team. It gives you a fair, data-driven way to coach people, recognize top performers, and spot who might need extra support without exporting anything to spreadsheets or buying another reporting tool. And because it's standard Salesforce data, you can adapt these dashboards to your own KPIs or plug the same data into tools like Power BI if you prefer. Unaric connects the Salesforce org you've invested in with the team's phone system you're already using, turning every call into reliable Salesforce data and helping you get the most out of both systems.